Okay, so we're 48b at the very bottom, and we're just discussing learning different sacrifices from different sacrifices, meaning that sometimes you have a sacrifice that if you do it for the wrong reasons, you can still bring it up, even though it's not going to count as your obligation was fulfilled, but it still works as a sacrifice. So by shlamim, we said that, but by asham, we didn't say that. If you have a 2-year-old asham and instead of a 1-year-old, we don't say that since by another asham, another guilt offering, a 2-year-old would be good. So too in our case, even though a 2-year-old's not good, we should still say it's valid. That we do not say. So that was Rav Simon Bar Ashi said, "Done in davar shelo b'hechsher, midavar shelo b'hechshero." If you just have a wrong intent, okay, you can learn from other sacrifices that have a wrong intent that it's good to go. But if it's someone just davar shelo b'hechsher, midavar shelo b'hechshero, if this sacrifice has to be 1-year-old and that sacrifice has to be 2-year-old, so you cannot learn one from the other. On that, what we're up to is below V'hatanya says the Brisa, Minayin liyotze shim ala lo yerid. How do I know that if you put something, if you have removed something from the premises, and then you went back in, it's invalid, but you went back in and put it on the altar, that you don't need to take it off. Shaharei. Now it looks like you said the whole thing up. Now it looks like you said it all up. So, Minayin liyotze shim ala lo yerid. Shaharei yotze kasher b'bama. If you take something out of the premises and back up on the altar, so then it's going to be good morning. How's everyone doing? Okay. Steve, you're committed to me first before Yossi. I'm your first commitment before Yossi. Okay. Someone said at the show, but they messed up a little bit. They put the machitzah. Anyways, okay. How do I know that if I remove something from the premises and then I bring it back in, it's invalid? But if I put it on the altar, it can remain, because by a bama, by our mounds, which that whole area is considered leaving the premises, yet it's kosher over there. So doesn't that show you that I can learn things that are possible from things that are impossible? Meaning, by a bama, though, that's something which you're allowed to bring it up when it's, so to speak, outside the premises. Why? Because the whole area of the bama is outside. So how could you learn from there to a regular case where there's invalidation to bring it outside? On that, we say the answer that we always give when we have this question on the next page: Tana Azos Torah Sa'ola Riba Samichle. That really the idea of something that's outside being put back on the altar is not really learned out from the mounds. It's really learned out from an extra part of the verse by an ola, that if you put up an ola, then you don't have to take it down. So and the bama was just like a way to remember it, but it wasn't actually it's not actually your source, and therefore there's no rebuttal to us. Okay, we're on 49a. About to start a new topic. First line. One more. Turn. Yeah. Temper the volume. 49a. Right there. Tani Rabba Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Chana taught the following. Kamei the Rab in front of Rab. How you doing? Over? Lynn sent me pictures of you yesterday. I don't know. Lynn sent me pictures of you yesterday. Tani Rabbi Bar Chana Kamei the Rab in front of Rab. Kivsei Atzeres. So back to Shavuos. Shavuos, you bring these 2 lambs with your breads. So Kivsei Atzeres, you slaughtered these lambs for the sake of rams. So you got excited over the football game, right? St. Louis. No, the Rams are St. Louis, right? And now what happened?
St. Louis.
Who's in St. Louis? Nobody. Jules, you got to start a team. Okay, you slaughter lambs, you get excited for football, so you have in mind the Rams. So Kif said, Teresh Shachton Lashum Ayalim. What's the halacha? Is it good or not good? So Rabba Bar Chana said to Rav Sherin, below Alu Lebailin Lashum Chova. Once again, the sacrifice is valid. However, it does not count as your Shavuos offering. Amar Le Rav. Rav says, Alu va'alu. It counts as an offering and it counts as your Shavuos offering, even though you had in mind, instead of lambs, you had in mind rams, it's still going to work. Amar Rav Chisda, says Rav Chisda, Mistabra Milsa de Rav. Rav's statement is logical. So, because Savar Ayalim, V'shachna L'shum Kvasim, if you thought that they were rams, meaning they're really lambs, you thought they were rams, and you slaughtered it for the sake of lambs. So now, really they're lambs, you thought they were rams, and you slaughtered them, what you're thinking, for the wrong intention, for lambs. So, Sharei Kvasim, L'shum Kvasim Nishchatu. So that's going to be good because that's like lambs slaughtered for lambs. At the end of the day, it really is a lamb, and you slaughtered for a lamb. Aval kesavar ayalim, v'shachtan l'shum ayalim. But let's say you thought that they were rams, and you slaughtered them as rams for the sake of rams. So then we say, lo, why? Akira betos havia akira. And this begins this topic. Akira betos havia akira, you uprooted it mistakenly. Is that called an uprooting or not? So when you have in mind the wrong thing, can that uproot the sacrifice from what it is? So in this case, they're really lambs. But you thought they were rams and you had in mind rams. So that's called an akira. You tried to uproot. There's an uproot, but it was mistakenly uprooted, not on purpose. It was mistakenly because you really thought that they were rams. So in your head, you're doing everything right. However, it's called an akira betos. It was an uprooting, mistaken uprooting. Is that called an uprooting or not? So he says, akira betos, havia akira. Yeah. Now, once again, our original statement was the lambs were slaughtered for the sake of the rams, and they're good, but they don't count for your Shavuos offering. To that, Rav said they do count for your Shavuos offering. To that, Rav Chisda said Rav is more logical because only in the case where you thought they were, that they were rams, and you slaughtered them for the sake of rams, is that going to be an uprooting? But in the case where you knew that they were lambs and you had in mind rams, that's still going to be good according to Rav. So Rav Chisda said Rav is logical. Now, what's with Rabbah? So Rabbah argued and said that that it's not good. V'Rabbah Amar Akira betos lo havia akira. So Rabbah says akira betos lo havia akira, that an uprooting, a mistaken uprooting, would not be considered an uprooting. So he would argue and say that it would not be considered an uprooting. Okay. Now, in our case that they argue about, it doesn't sound there are any mistakes here. They were lambs, and he had in mind rams. 1 second. Yeah. So, meaning our debate, Rabbi Chana and Rav, it sounds like he knew that they were lambs, and he had in mind rams. Unless, right, but I think 1 second. I think our Gemara is saying that in our original case of the Shavuos lambs, he really thought that they were rams. Right? The reason he said, I'm going to slaughter this for the sake of a ram and not a lamb. Why did he do that? Because he thought it was a ram. So now he thought it was a ram, and he says, I'm going to slaughter it for the sake of a ram. So that Rav said. 1 second. Once again, Rabbi Bar Chana said it was not counted for your Shavuos offering. Rav said it was. Now he's slaughtering lambs, but he's thinking that they're rams. Does he know that it's a lamb or not? Presumably he does not, because if he knew it was a lamb, he would have slaughtered it for the sake of a lamb. Must be he didn't know it was a lamb. He thought it was a ram, and he slaughtered it for a ram. So
He says he thought the rams were lambs. He thought the lambs were rams.
He thought the lambs were rams, yeah. So once again, Rav Chisda says that Rav's logic is logical. His reason is logical, because when you think that they are rams and you slaughter it for rams, so then my head is going backwards opinions. 1 second. Okay. Oh. Oh, it's not related back to our. Okay. Yeah, not related back. Fine. So, fine. So that's that. So earlier we have Rabbi Bar Chana and we have Rav. To that, Rav Chitz says Rav is more logical because it sounds like Rav Chisda compares it to a case of someone thinking that they are rams and slaughter for the sake of lambs. So that's going to be fine. So here, so I don't show my own. 1 second. It's coming out backwards in my head. In our case, he didn't do that. In our case, he did. He took lambs and slaughtered it for rams. 1 second. So it's rams thinking that it's rams.
No. So the first case, the second case. First
In the
case
second case, if he thought it was rams, did it for rams, it should not be good. All right, so why did he say that it's good? Amarav, 2 count, which is our case, no? Oh no, our case is lambs. 1 second. Offerings are deemed to have been made not for the sake, and they do not count toward the filling of obligation. So why is our case good? The lamb was slaughtered for rams. He thought it was a ram, and he slaughtered it as a ram. So here what happened. Slaughter thought that the lambs were slaughtered for rams. Okay, that's why. Okay. Okay, fine. He thought they were rams and he slaughtered them for the sake of lambs. But if he thought that they were rams and slaughtered them for the sake of rams, so then that's a debate. Is this akir betos, havi akir or not? Meaning Rav Chisda understands that our case was when he thought that they were rams and slaughtered them for the sake of lambs. But if he thought they were rams and slaughtered them for the sake of rams, so then that would be no good. So that's the first opinion. Why would it be no good? Because if the animal is actually a lamb, but you think it's a ram, and you slaughter it as a ram, so then that's called an akira. That's an uprooting. It's a mistaken uprooting, and that would be considered an uprooting, and therefore it's not going to be good. Rabbah says, though, no, akira b'tos lahavi akira. A mistaken uprooting is not considered an uprooting. Okay, so now, Amar Rava, umosvina nashmaitin. We're going to ask you a question from our favorite topic. HaKohanim shepiglu b'mikdash. Kohanim that piggled, that had a mistaken thought, right, in the base of Mikdash. So mezidin chayavin. So finally, I was curious about this, all the piggle discussion. So it's really a Gemara and Gittin. If the Kohanim advertently mess up, then they do have to pay back the owner of the animal. If I give my animal in and the Kohen messes up on purpose, then he does have to pay me back money. I need to bring a new offering now. So that's really a Gemara and Gittin. 53, 54. So we're asking, HaKohanim shepiglu b'mikdash. Kohanim that made a mistake. Well, they advertently had the wrong intention when they slaughtered it, or one of the services, chayavin. But hashogagin pturin. But if they inadvertently made a mistake, a piggle mistake, then they're going to be exempt. The Tani Allah pigulin piggle, and we said about that it's still considered a piggle, even if you made a mistake inadvertently, it's still going to be considered piggle. So now, what's the case that you inadvertently had a piggle thought? So, hey chidami, if you knew it was a chatas and you had in mind for a shlamim, so again, that's not inadvertence, that's advertence. Elalav the kasavar shlamim who it must be you thought it was a shlamim. The kamachashev baal the shum shlamim. You thought it really was a chatas. You thought it was a shlamim, and you had in mind for a shlamim. Really, it's a chatas. But you thought it was a shlamim, and you had in mind for a shlamim, and on that we say, kani, pigul and piggle, and on that we say that's considered a piggle. So what do you see? Alma akira betos havia akira. We see that when you mistaken one sacrifice for another sacrifice, and you have in mind your mistaken sacrifice, so that's going to be an uprooting. That's going to be invalid. That's going to be invalid. So that would be a proof to the first opinion that a mistaken uprooting is considered an uprooting. Yeah. Amar le'abaye, no. Li'olam diyada dechatas. You knew it was a chatas. And you had in mind for it to be a shlamim. Ube'omer mutter. And the case is where you thought it was permissible to switch from a chatas to a shlamim. You didn't know the law. So that's still called inadvertence. Usually inadvertence is you don't know the law. But here, you know the law, you know the fact, but you thought it was permissible. So that's still called inadvertence. And that's the case that we're talking about. But it has no relevance to our case. Our case is where you have an animal X. You think it's Y, and you have in mind Y. Is that considered a valid uprooting or not? That's our case. This case is you thought it was permissible, so it doesn't shed any light. Back to the first page. So Rabbi Zera says, Rabbi Shimon says that kol menachos, all the flower sacrifices, that you have in mind something else, another flower sacrifice, sheros, that's valid. The alulabayim, it counts. L'shum chova, it counts for the owner's flower obligation. Why? Because by the flower offerings, they're so different from each other that even if you tell us your wrong intent, but we could see you're having in mind a deep fry flower offering, but you're bringing it on a small frying pan. You have in mind a small frying pan, you bring it in a deep frying pan. So The fact that you told that to us is irrelevant because we see your actions speak louder than words. So if all the menachos, the menachos are not similar to zvachim. By zvachim, so by menachos, if you do kmitza for a thinner frying pan offering, with in mind for a deeper frying pan, so then your actions show us what you mean. We see that you're using the first frying pan, the thinner one, or or you have a dry mincha offering with no oil mixed in, but you say I'm gonna bring this as a flour offering with oil. Okay, but we see that's not what you're doing. So we see that it's a dry flour offering. By slaughtering, so it's one shchita, it's one accepting of the blood, and it's one application of the blood. So therefore, you don't have this logic that your actions show us what you mean. Okay, now, heichidami, what is the case of Reb Shimon? So, if you're going to tell me the yada de machavasi, if you're going to tell me that you knew it was a thin frying pan, and you had in mind for a deeper frying pan, well, what does it mean that your actions show us what you mean? At the end of the day, you had this wrong intention. That should uproot this offering to a different offering. Who cares that your actions do that, or you verbalized it? That should be enough to uproot the offering from what it is. So that can't be what we're talking about. It must be that you thought it was a deep, meaning it's a thin fry. It's a, what's opposite of deep fry? Thin fry. Thin fry. Okay. Yeah, new phrase. So you thought it was a deep fry, even though it was a thin fry. It was a machavas. But you thought the offering was a deep fry offering. And you did a kmitza for the sake of a deep fry. And you made a mistake. So we say only here do your actions prove that really it's a thin fry, because you ended up going and taking a thin frying pan. So, but in general, if you would have this, even though it's X, but you thought it was Y, and you had in mind Y, alma in general, akira betos, akira, a mistaken uprooting is considered an uprooting, and therefore whatever your original offering was is no longer gonna fulfill your obligation. Amrle Abaye, no. Really, the case is laodam the other the makvasi. You knew it was a thin frying pan. You did a kmitza for the sake of a deep frying pan. You asked on me earlier. You asked earlier, like, who cares that your actions prove differently? Shouldn't your verbalization of what you want it to be uprooted in its entirety? So we say no. Rava, who said that was Rava Latame, went according to his reasoning earlier on the second page of Menachos. The Amar Rava, Machshava de lo minkara pasar rachmana. Rava held that any thought, or in this case, verbalization, that it's not visible, that's something which the Torah prohibited. That's going to be an invalidation. But Machshava de minkara pasar rachmana. Any thought here means really speech. And you speak out, I'm having in mind a deep frying pan. But we can clearly see that it's not true. So such a thought is not going to uproot this offering from what it is. So once again, we thought we had a case where it was X, you thought it was Y, you had in mind Y, and therefore it would be a proof that a uprooting by mistake, a mistaken uprooting is a good uprooting, and therefore it doesn't count for your original offering. But then we said you don't have a proof. There's no proof from there. A shallow pen. Oh, very good. A shallow pen. Yeah. Fine. Okay, here we go. Next Mishnah. Hatmidin ein ma'akvin es musafin. They don't. We'll see exactly what the case is. Hatmidin, you brought a two daily offerings, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Tamid baboker and a tamid bein ha'arbayim in the afternoon. So ein ma'akvin es musafin. They don't prevent the musaf offerings. The lo musafin ma'akvin es tmidim, and the musaf offerings don't prevent the tmidim. So v'lo hamusafin ma'akvin zed zeh. So on Shabbos you bring 2 Musaf offerings, or Chodesh you bring 7 Musaf offerings. They don't prevent each other. You can bring, if you only have one, then you bring that one. So Lohi Krivu, Keves Baboker. If you didn't bring your morning offering, Yakrivu Vein Ha'arbayim, you could bring in the afternoon. I have to double check, but I believe our laws for Shacharis are based off of this. Person misses Shacharis, you can make it up at Mincha. You daven a second Shemona Esrei. So Amar Reb Shimon, he qualifies. He argues by Amar Reb Shimon Amasai. When is this true? Bisman Shayu Anusin or Yishagigin? That's only when you made a unavoidable mishap. You were involved in something else, or someone needed you for something. You had to run to the hospital. So, and that's why you forgot the morning sacrifice. Oh, Shogigin. I don't know. You thought you could bring in the afternoon. Aval imhayu mezidin v'lohi krivu kaves baboker lo yakrivu bein harbayim. If you on purpose, the Kohen on purpose didn't bring it in the morning, so then, and we're going to ask him, it's also sounds like he gets penalized that you can't bring it anymore in the afternoon, which the Gemara is going to ask because the Kohen messed up, the altar has to suffer. I mean, you have to bring an offering, so punish him, but why does the altar have to suffer? Okay, fine. So that's that. So now, Amr. No, lohik tiruk Torres. Now we also had one measurement of this special incense that was divided up. It was a mana divided up into a pras, half of a mana measurement. And they say like 20 ounces. So half of that measurement was brought in the morning. Another thing you did daily, the Torres, brought on the inner altar. And the other half of that measurement was brought in the afternoon. So now, lohik tiruk Torres baboker yaktir ben arabayim. If you don't bring it in the morning, bring it in the afternoon. Well, what do you bring in the afternoon? Usually you only have half a measurement in the morning, half measurement in the afternoon. The first opinion holds, simply understood, is that you can still bring the half the measurement in the afternoon. Reb Shimon's going to say, I'm Reb Shimon, but bring the entire portion in the afternoon, not half the portion, the entire portion. And she'ein mechanech as a mizbeach hazal. A little bit of a debate if this line is his own independent thing, but it sounds like it flows. Meaning Reb Shimon's looking for a precedent that I can bring the entire measurement in the afternoon. So he tells you that when you're mechanech, when you are inaugurate the inner temple, the inner altar, the mizbeach hazav, the golden altar, the inner altar, you do it ein mechanech ela b'ktoris hasamim. You do it with the ketores, and you do it. It sounds like you do it in the afternoon. So when you inaugurate the inner altar, you do it with the entire measurement. So we have a precedent that you can bring the entire measurement in the afternoon. Below mizbeach ha'ola, ela b'tamid shel shachar. The outer altar is inaugurated by the tamid shel shachar. That is inaugurated in the morning with that sacrifice. Below us shulchan ela b'lechem hapanim, and the table is only inaugurated with the bread on it on Shabbos. And the menorah is inaugurated with 7 candles in the towards the evening time, the later afternoon. That's how you inaugurate those vessels. Okay, the Gemara is going to ask, like, why are we talking all about inauguration all of a sudden? But yeah, okay. Now, interesting question. Bo minei Reb Chia bar Avin mei Rav Chisda. Sibur she'ein lahen tamidin umusafin. You don't have enough money for both your daily Talmud offering and your Musaf offering. So it's a special day, whatever it is. It's Rosh Chodesh, it's a holiday, it's Shabbos. So you don't have enough money for both. Which one takes precedence? Eize mehen kodem. Which one comes first? So says the Gemara, hey Chidami, what's the case? Ilema tamidin di yomei umusafin di yomei. If you're talking that today is a day where you bring a Talmud and a Musaf, so for sure the Talmud comes first. Shita tamidin adifi, the havalahu tadir umekudash. For sure, the Talmud comes first because on the one hand, it's more frequent. Tadir means more frequent, and there's a rule that you bring the more frequent one first. Umekudash, it also has an aspect of a holiday to it. It's a Talmud of a holiday, so it has 2 pluses to it. And the Musaf offering is only holy. It's also brought because of a holiday. So therefore, it's two against one. One is more frequent, and therefore you're going to bring it. So Rashi has two explanations of what the word mekudesh means, that it's more holy. Either it's more holy because it comes on a holy day. If that's true, then it means it's frequent and holy, and the Musaf's only holy. But the other explanation of Rashi is that it's the daily sacrifice is more holy because it's brought first. Being brought first in the morning makes it holy. Okay, so if that's the case, for sure your daily sacrifice comes first. Ella tmidim dilamachar umusafin dehaidna. Tomorrow's tamid or today's musaf? What do? You only have money for one. Tomorrow's tamid or today's musaf? So it says in Gemara, do you say tamid and adif shekain tadir? On the one hand, bring the more frequent one first. So that's a tamid. That's on the one hand. Or maybe you'll say, musaf and adife de havale mekudash. You'll say that a musaf is preferable because it's more mekudash. Either more mekudash means it's more unique because it's only brought on certain days, or you say it's more mekudash means because right now you got to bring it right now. That sounds better. That sounds better in terms of the flow of the Gemara. That it's right now. So the one that's right now takes precedence. It's more holy. So that was the question that Rabbi Chia asked Rav Chisda. Amar Le, Tenisua learned from our Mishnah. Hatmidin ein ma'akvin as a musafin. The daily sacrifices do not prevent the musafin below musafin. Ma'akvin as a tmidin below some musafin. Ma'akvin zedzet. Our Mishnah says that the daily offerings and the musaf offerings don't prevent one another, and they don't prevent each other either. If you only have one, you can bring the other. So what's the case of our Mishnah? Heichi dami. What's the case? Ilema de islay ulekadem. If the case is that you have both the tamid and the musaf, you have enough money for both, but you want to know which one comes first. So, and the answer is you could bring either one first, the tamid or the musaf. That can't be because the tamid has to come first. So that can't be what our Mishnah means. I mean, our Mishnah is that they don't prevent each other. So what does that mean? They don't prevent each other. So if you want to tell me what it means is you can bring the musaf first and then the ola and then the tamid offering afterwards. That can't be. Why? How do I know that nothing can come before a tamid shel shachar, the morning sacrifice? It says you should set up the ola, the amarava haola ola rishona. That this ola is the first ola that's brought, and the ola that this ola has to be brought first from all the sacrifices, and this ola is the tamid, the morning sacrifice. So haola has to come first. So that's what Rava explains the verse. Haola ola rishona. It must go first. Turn the page. So that's not the case of our Mishnah. So what's the case of our Mishnah where the daily sacrifice and the musaf offerings do not prevent one another? Ela pshita de lesle. It must be you don't have enough money, and you have to know: do I bring a tamid or do I bring a musaf? Now, what are we talking about? The idi yomei. So if it's for that day, so the idi yomei amai tadir umakudash tadir adif. What's your question? If for that day you only have money for one, the daily one or the musaf one, the daily one comes first. So that is not what our Mishnah is telling us. Because our Mishnah is ein ma'akvin zedda, you can bring either one. But if it's the same day and you have money for one, either the daily offering or the musaf offering, it must be, since the law is you bring the tamid offering, so then that's not what our Mishnah is talking about. So what is our Mishnah talking about? Elalav dilamachar. It must be that you're talking about money for tomorrow, for a daily sacrifice tomorrow. And yet, what do you see? The katani ein ma'akvin zedzeh. And yet the Mishnah says, ein ma'akvin zedzeh. Tomorrow's daily sacrifice, today's musaf sacrifice, either one you want. No precedence. And that's the proof from our Mishnah. Alma ki hadadinenhu. So you see, they're the same. Tomorrow's tamid and today's musaf is the same. You can choose anyone you want. Bring today's musaf, bring tomorrow's tamid, up to you. So, Amar le Abaye, he keeps rejecting good suggestions. So, Amar le Abaye, la'olam de islu. Really? No. You have money, for both offerings today. Kadem. And the question actually was our first suggestion. Which one comes first? So it's 5 a.m, and you want to know, do I bring the tamid or do I bring the musaf offering? So Vidika Kashluk, you asked me a question. You brought me a brisa with Rava's interpretation. Shelo Yehedavar Kodem, that nothing can come before the tamid offering, and therefore you had to tell me that the mission was talking about a different case. Abaye holds mitzvah ba'almahu, that we bring the tamid as first thing in the morning. That is the ideal way to do things. But if you bring a musaf before the tamid, it's not going to prevent the tamid from being brought. You can still bring the tamid afterwards. So 2 opinions. When we say you bring your morning sacrifice, it has to be the first one. It has to be, and if not, it's invalid. Or it has to be, but if something is brought before it, it's not going to invalidate it.
So that's basically saying you walk into
Yeah.
Musaf.
At 4 a.m. You want to know, can you do that? Good question. That happens to be a question. If you walk in and you didn't daven shachris yet, and they're davening musaf now, should you chaperein, as they say, should you join them along so that you'll get the tefillah called tefillah b'tzibur? You get down with a congregation in an ideal state, or should you do shachris first? I think that's a question. Yeah. Okay.
That you forgot.
And therefore. Yeah.
And therefore they don't shachris.
Okay. And you are where? You're not Menachim, no. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Which happens to be
Chakras. Okay.
But by you, it's time for Musa.
Okay.
So you walk in, you see the Musa.
Good.
We haven't done a
Oh, you haven't damaged it? Right. Can you do that? You want to Musa before chakras?
Then you damage chakras.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. To clarify these things, good.
I think that's the case they've got to go.
Kind of, okay. I think Rashi says Kesser, Tos says Chabad. Yeah, whatever. So Tashma, Ein Poksin. So let's bring a price up to try to answer our question. Ein Poksin, Mishisha Tlaim, Amubakar, Belishkas Tlaim. Kidei, Lashabis, Ulashim, Thomas Roshana. Okay, so there's a chamber where they had their shepsela. Yeah, they had their sheep. And you got to keep six there at all times in the special chamber of the sheep. Why? Sheep, lamb, sorry, lamb, not sheep. Yeah, the lambs. So you had 6 lambs there at all time. Why? Because in the event that you have Shabbos and then followed by 2 days Rosh Hashanah, you got to bring, that's 6 daily offerings. So in that situation, will you ever have Shabbos followed by any other holiday? Why say Rosh Hashanah? Yeah, I know. Why did you Rosh Hashanah? That's interesting. That's a Yossi question. Okay. So hey Chidami, what's the case? So now, why do you have to have always 6 available? What's the case? One sec. If you have all your offerings, what do you mean 6? You have to have 22. 6. So if you get it wrong, it's like tough. So you have to have 6 for your daily offering, 2 for your Shabbos musaf. That's going to be 8, and then 14 more for 7 for each Rosh Hashanah. Another 14 musaf offerings. So that's going to get you 6 daily offerings and 16 musaf offerings. You got to have 22 lambs, not 6. So el alav de lesle must be that you don't have enough money. And yet, make sure you always have 6 for your daily offerings. What do you see takes precedence? Shema minat midin adifi. We see from here that the tamid offering takes precedence. Oh, that answers our question. The fact that we require 6 for a 3-day for 3 days, Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, we only have enough money for 6, so we don't spend it on the musaf. We spend it on the tamid. Oh, lo olam this really you have enough money. It says 6, not 22. Because arba yamim kodim shchita, meaning we just mentioned the 6 you have to, because these 6 are Talmud offerings. Talmud, you have to, there's a special requirement that you have to check it 4 days before the slaughtering. Does that mean check it once 4 days before the slaughtering? Does that mean check it every day of the 4 days? So some say if you don't check it, it's actually a totally invalid offering. Interesting rule. You have to check the Talmud 4 days beforehand. And who's that going like? So, so really, you have enough money for everything. I mentioned 6 because these 6 need special checking beforehand. Well, money, whose opinion is Ben Bagbag? Probably one of my favorite names, no? Mm-hmm. Ben Bagbag, yeah. So Ben Umani Ben Bagbagi. The Tanya Ben Bagbag. Omer Ben Bagbag says, "Minayin l'tomit t'shetam bikar arba yomim." How do I know that daily sacrifice requires 4 days of checking? Kodem shchita, before you slaughter it. Talmud lomar tishmru lahakid b'mawadu lahalan hu omer lahayalachan l'mishmeres ad arba asar yom. So we have Xerishah from Pesach coming up. Yeah, within 30 days. So malahalan toan bikar arba yomim kodem shchita. Afkan toan bikur arba yomim kodem shchita. Just like by Pesach, you need 4 days to check it beforehand. So to the Talmud, you need to have 4 days beforehand to check it. Amrle Ravina Ravashi, honey shisha, shiva havu. 1 sec. Why 6 then? Fine. 6, not 22, I got. But it should be 7. What's going to happen? You have Shabbos, Sunday, Monday. That's 6 daily sacrifices, morning and afternoon. But what happens on Tuesday morning? There's not enough time to go shopping Monday night for a lamb. So you always got to have a 7th one for 5 a.m. Tuesday morning. So, Amrle Ravina Ravashi, honey shisha, shiva havu. The ha'ika titzafra. You have to have 7 for Tuesday morning. Well, the Tameh, according to you have to have 8. Why? What's Erev Shabbos? Erev Shabbos, you also need one Erev Shabbos. So Tameh that you could have to demolish Shabbos, so you have to have Erev Shabbos. Hello, Kasher, that's not a problem. The Labas of the Akrib Kamar, we said 6 because we were talking about after you brought that afternoon sacrifice Erev Shabbos. Now you have to have 6. Okay, but still you have to have 7. No, not 6. So it's not 8 because we knocked that one out. We only said after you brought that Erev Shabbos sacrifice. Next page. Mikol Makam Shivavu. What about Tuesday morning? You actually have 7. Ella Tana Ba'alma Kai. Really, the Mishnah was just talking in general. It wasn't speaking about a specific case of Shabbos and 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. But it says Shabbos Ushtayavim Tovim Rosh Hashanah. That's a Simana Ba'almahu. That's just a way to remember it. Now, this is where we left off. So why do you have to have 6? The whole reason why you have to have 6 is for 3 days. That the Gemara rejects the fact that it's a Shabbos followed by 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So why do you have to have 6? So, she says a whole nation that you have to have 6 in general, even on a regular weekdays. Why? Because each time are checked 4 days beforehand. So each day you have to have 6 available, and you can take any 2 that you want. So why do you have to have 6? Yeah. It sounds like, I don't know, he gives an explanation. The Chacham decided a set number that you have to have 6. In case that it happens that you're missing some or something like that, you're always going to have 2 available for you.
Even with 6, you should.
Why are you sure too?
I do it, okay. Anytime is if I check after today's mincha.
Yeah.
I've got 6.
Okay.
Okay. But then I've got to add another 2 tomorrow. That gives me 3 days.
And I have to go through the whole long rush here, but she ends off saying that that you're gonna have to have 6. That always gives you 2 that are fit to be slaughtered. Oh, it's 6:58. No, okay, we'll stop here.